A wealthy man found a lost little girl in the woods and took his home to his disabled mother. As he entered without knocking, the scene before him left him stunned. Scott was driving home, exhausted after another grueling day at the office. As the head of the company his father had passed down to him, the weight of responsibility seemed heavier every day. Even though his body was tired, his mind kept racing, always planning the next move for the business. He was well known for his dedication and professionalism, but outside of work, Scott was a private man. When he pulled into the garage of his large home, he let out a deep sigh. The silence and emptiness of the house only made the loneliness more palpable. The one person he still felt connected to was his mother, Helena, but her health was fading fast due to advanced Alzheimer's. Stepping into the house, he left the last traces of daylight behind. "Donna, I'm home," Scott called out, not expecting to see the housekeeper this late. Normally, she would have already gone home, but tonight, she was still there. "Mr. Scott, I stayed to talk to you about Mrs. Helena," Donna said with a concerned tone. Scott sighed, bracing himself for the difficult conversation about his mother. "How is she today, Donna?" he asked, dreading the answer. "The same, sir, but she asked for you several times today. I think it would be good if you spent some time with her, even if she doesn't remember it later," Donna suggested gently. Scott nodded, guilt gnawing at him for not spending as much time with his mother as he wished. "I'll go see her now," he replied, heading to Helena's room. When he entered, he found his mother sitting in her chair, gazing out the window with a distant look. "Mum, it's me, Scott," he said softly, hiding the pain of seeing her like this. Helena turned her head slowly, her eyes confused for a moment before a brief flicker of recognition appeared. "Scott," she murmured, her voice weak but filled with love. "Yes, Mum, it's me. How are you feeling?" he asked, holding her hand. The conversation was brief and mostly disjointed, but to Scott, these moments were precious, a bittersweet reminder of how things used to be. Leaving his mother's room, Scott felt the weight of his loneliness grow even heavier. The large house seemed more like an echo of memories than a home. Sitting on the couch in his room, he reflected on his life. Despite all his professional success, there was an undeniable emptiness, a deep lack of true connection with anyone. He couldn't help but wonder if this was all his life would be, work and caring for his mother. He wanted something more, but didn't know how or where to find it. That evening, after a solitary dinner in the grand dining room, Scott decided to take a walk through the woods that surrounded the property. The mansion, with its many rooms and empty halls, seemed to trap him in his own thoughts and solitude. The forest, on the other hand, offered a place of escape, somewhere he could breathe and let go of the weight he carried. Throwing on a coat, he stepped outside. The cool air immediately brought him a sense of calm, with the sounds of nature replacing the oppressive silence of the house. As he walked deeper into the woods, Scott let his mind wander. He thought about his life, his mother's illness, and the loneliness that seemed to consume him. In spite of everything, this moment of peace was something he had been longing for. As he moved along the path, the moonlight lit his way through the trees. The crunch of leaves under his feet and the occasional chirp of a night bird were the only sounds breaking the stillness. Scott found himself thinking about the simplicity of nature and how, despite being the owner of a successful business, he craved something as basic as companionship and understanding. Suddenly, his thoughts were interrupted by a faint noise. He stopped, trying to figure out where it was coming from. It sounded like quiet, muffled sobbing. Following the sound, he came upon a small figure huddled beneath a tree. It was a little girl, crying alone in the dark woods. Scott approached cautiously. "Hey, are you okay? What are you doing out here all by yourself?" His voice was gentle, trying not to scare her. The girl looked up, surprised and a little scared. "I got lost," she said, her voice choked with tears. "I don't know how to get home." Scott felt a surge of compassion for the child. "Don't worry, I'll help you find your way back. What's your name?" He crouched down to her level, trying to appear as unthreatening as possible. Emily wiped away her tears before responding. He reached out his hand. "I'm Scott," he said. "Come on, I'll take you home." Walking down the path with Emily by his side, Scott couldn't shake the unexpected feeling of responsibility that had settled over him. The concern for this lost little girl had, if only for a brief moment, taken his mind off his own troubles. As they walked, Scott focused on the path that he knew would eventually lead them to a busy street. He guessed this might be the direction she had come from. However, during their walk, Scott glanced at Emily, noticing for the first time the state of her clothing. Though clean, her clothes were simple and worn, a clear indication that her life was quite different from his. "Emily, where's your home? Do you know which direction it's in?" Scott asked, expecting to hear the name of a nearby street or neighborhood. Her answer, however, left him stunned. "My home is a little house I made out of cardboard. I think it's a little far from here, in a place no one else wants to be. I know where it is, but I don't quite remember how to get there," she said, her eyes shining with pride. Her innocence and contentment with something as fragile as a cardboard house left Scott speechless for a moment. He tried to process what she had just told him, realizing how serious the situation really was. The girl in front of him didn't have a home in the way most people would think. Instead, she had a makeshift shelter, exposed to all sorts of dangers. "Do you live there by yourself?" Scott couldn't hide the worry in his voice. "Yes, but I like it, you know," Emily replied, oblivious to the severity of her situation. "I made it all by myself. It even has a window." Scott felt a tightness in his chest. While her strength and independence were impressive, the thought of her going back to such a place weighed heavily on him. "Emily, it's really cold at night and it's getting late. Would you like to stay at my place tonight? Tomorrow, we can go check out your cardboard house and figure out what we can do to help." Scott tried to make his voice as inviting as possible without scaring her. The girl looked at him with a hint of suspicion, but there was also a flicker of hope in her eyes. "Are you sure?" "I don't want to be a bother," she said shyly. Scott nodded with a gentle smile. "I'm sure, Emily. Let's go. It'll be an adventure." When they arrived at the mansion, Emily's reaction was nothing short of pure delight. Her eyes widened in amazement. With a bright smile, she exclaimed, "Wow, this place looks like something out of a fairy tale." Scott couldn't help but smile back, caught up in the little girl's infectious joy and innocence. It was unusual for him to witness such genuine admiration and excitement. That brief moment brought him happiness he hadn't felt in a long time. Guiding Emily through the grand entrance, he made his way to Donna, the housekeeper, hoping she could help with the unexpected situation. Donna, always serious and professional, raised her eyebrow in surprise at the sight of the child standing next to Scott. "Mr. Scott, what's going on? Who is this girl?" she asked, her voice betraying more than simple curiosity. Scott quickly explained the situation, hoping for understanding and support. However, Donna's reaction was far from what he had expected. "You can't just bring a stranger into the house, sir. She could be carrying illnesses or worse. It could put all of us at risk, especially your mother," Donna scolded, clearly worried about the consequences of Scott's decision. Her response both surprised and frustrated Scott. He wasn't used to being questioned in his own home, especially when it came to helping someone in need. "I expected more compassion from you, Donna. Emily is just a child who needs help. We're not going to turn our backs on her," Scott replied firmly. The discussion briefly heated up, with Donna emphasizing the risks and Scott standing by his sense of duty to show kindness. Eventually, Scott ended the argument. "I've made my decision, Donna. You will get some clean clothes for Emily, run her a warm bath, and make sure she has a decent meal tonight," he ordered, making it clear there would be no further debate. Though visibly displeased, Donna reluctantly agreed. "As you wish, sir," she said, clearly not happy about it. While it was uncommon for Scott to assert his authority so forcefully, he knew he couldn't, in good conscience, do anything less for Emily. Donna walked away to carry out the orders, and Scott turned his attention back to the little girl, who had been watching the exchange with a mix of confusion and admiration. He kneeled down beside Emily, smiling at her. "Don't worry, we're going to take care of you," he said, hoping to ease any fear or concern she might have had. The young girl, still amazed by the grandeur of the house, smiled back, her face lighting up with gratitude and relief. In that moment, Scott felt a deep sense of certainty in his heart. No matter what challenges lay ahead, helping Emily was the right choice. Shortly after, she was taken to her room. To Emily, the temporary space Scott had provided felt like a palace. She eagerly jumped onto the soft bed, feeling the pillows and exploring every corner with the kind of curiosity and excitement only a child could have. "This is bigger than my cardboard house," she exclaimed with laughter, darting back and forth, admiring the size and elegance of the room. After a warm bath that chased away the cold and soothed her aching little body, Emily dressed in the clean, cozy clothes Donna had prepared. The clothes were simple, but to her, it felt like she was dressed for a party. Sitting on the bed, she devoured the meal she was given, each bite showing just how much she appreciated it. When Scott returned to check on her, he found Emily lying down, her eyes shining with happiness and contentment. "Everything okay in here?" he asked, feeling a wave of satisfaction, seeing how much the girl had transformed in such a short time. "Yes. Everything is so beautiful and delicious. Thank you so much, Mr. Scott," she responded with genuine sincerity that warmed his heart. "You don't need to call me Mr. Emily. Just Scott is fine," he said, sitting on the edge of the bed. The girl felt a bit shy now that the reality of her situation was sinking in. "Scott, can I ask you something?" she began, the innocent curiosity sparkling in her eyes. "Is this house a real castle?" Scott laughed, clearly delighted by her question. "Not exactly a castle, but it is my home, and tonight it's your home too." He realized how much he enjoyed having someone to share his large, empty house with, even if it was just for one night. "Would you like me to read you a bedtime story?" he offered, hoping to make her evening even more special. Emily's eyes lit up at the suggestion. "I'd love that," she exclaimed, snuggling into the blankets. Scott picked a book from the shelf and began reading. Her gentle and soothing voice filled the room, and Emily listened intently. Before long, her eyes grew heavy, and she drifted off to sleep. A peaceful smile rested on her face. At dawn, the sunlight streamed through the room, gently waking Emily from the deepest, most comfortable sleep she had ever had in her young life. The serenity of the night was suddenly broken by the voice of the housekeeper, Donna, who briskly pulled back the curtains and announced it was time to get up. "Hurry up, girl. It's breakfast time," she said, in a tone that left no room for argument. Still drowsy, Emily rubbed her eyes and sleepily asked about Scott. "He's gone to work and won't be back until late," Donna replied in a blunt, cold manner, offering no further explanation or comfort. Emily's disappointment was evident. She had hoped to see Scott in the morning, maybe even share breakfast with him like a little makeshift family. But knowing it was pointless to argue with Donna, she reluctantly got out of bed and prepared for the day. Though disappointed, Emily obediently got up, still thinking about Scott and the kindness he had shown her. She brushed her teeth and dressed herself, a bit awkwardly, still not used to the lavishness and formality of the mansion. The housekeeper impatiently waited to escort her to breakfast, a daily ritual Emily had never experienced before. Sitting at the breakfast table, Emily marveled at the sheer abundance and variety of food, so different from her usual sparse meals. Yet Donna's presence made the meal less enjoyable. In her usual cold tone, the housekeeper gave Emily instructions. "Don't you dare leave the room for any reason. I don't have time to babysit," she said, making it clear that any disobedience wouldn't be tolerated. Emily nodded, pretending to agree with Donna's strict orders. However, deep down, the young girl was already plotting to explore the mansion the moment she had the chance. Her curiosity and sense of adventure were far too strong to be stifled by harsh rules. She imagined all the secrets the big house might hold, the hidden corners and rooms she had yet to discover. After breakfast, Donna led her back to her room. As Emily sat there, she felt a mix of excitement and nervousness at the thought of breaking the rules. She knew she might get into trouble if she got caught, but the thrill of adventure was calling her name, and the chance to learn more about Scott's world was too tempting to pass up. As soon as the door clicked shut behind Donna, Emily was already plotting her next move. Her heart raced just a bit faster as she pressed her ear to the door, listening carefully to the sounds of the house coming to life. The sound of Donna's footsteps fading down the hallway gave her confidence. She waited a moment longer, making sure the housekeeper was far enough away, and then, with a breath of determination, she quietly opened the door and stepped into the corridor. Scott's mansion was like a maze of wonders to Emily. Each hallway, each door that stood ajar, revealed something new and exciting. She explored with wide eyes, curiosity guiding her every step. At one point, she stopped to open drawers filled with strange objects and relics from a distant past. In another moment, she peeked into enormous vases that seemed capable of hiding secrets. The portraits on the walls told stories of long-gone generations, their eyes seemingly following Emily as she passed by. She wondered about the people in the paintings, imagining their lives and adventures. Every room she wandered into seemed to whisper ancient stories, filling her mind with questions and wonder. During her exploration, Emily came upon a slightly open door leading to Helena's room. With a mix of curiosity and excitement, she stepped inside, finding the elderly woman sitting in a chair, staring off into space. "Hello?" Emily said gently as she approached. Helena turned her head toward the voice, but her eyes showed no recognition or understanding. Trying to start a conversation, Emily continued, "I'm Emily, a friend of Scott's." But Helena remained silent, her mind lost in the maze of memories that were no longer easily reachable. The young girl sat beside her, sharing stories about the forest near her makeshift home and how Scott had found her. Despite the lack of response, Emily felt a strange connection, as though somehow her words were bringing some small comfort to the elderly woman. However, restlessness soon crept back into Emily. The peacefulness of the room was comforting, but her youthful curiosity couldn't let her stay still for long. She turned her attention back to her surroundings, determined to uncover what else this mysterious space had in store. The drawers and dressers revealed little more than everyday items and some dusty trinkets, relics from a time that held no significance for her. Yet none of it satisfied her thirst for adventure. Then, her eyes landed on a massive wardrobe at the far end of the room, a piece of furniture that seemed to hold secrets within its intricately carved wood. With eager hands, Emily swung open one of the doors, revealing an interior that was a treasure trove in itself. Inside, a guitar rested, holding the promise of forgotten melodies, but it was an ancient notebook that completely captured her attention. Carefully, She pulled the notebook from its hiding place, feeling the weight of history in her hands. The pages, yellowed with age, seemed to whisper tales waiting to be rediscovered. However, her moment of discovery was cut short by the sound of Donna's voice in the hallway. Emily's heart raced, and instinctively she hid the notebook under her clothing, afraid that the housekeeper might take away her newfound treasure. When Donna entered the room, the reprimand came swiftly. "Emily? What are you doing here? I told you to stay in your room," Donna exclaimed, irritation clear in her voice. The housekeeper's authority filled the space, causing Emily to shrink back, guilt and fear evident in her expression. "I was just looking," she muttered, knowing there was no excuse good enough to justify her disobedience. Sternly, Donna marched Emily back to her room, repeating that she wasn't to roam the house. "It's not safe, and you shouldn't touch things that don't belong to you," Donna warned as she escorted Emily away. The adventure was over for now, but the notebook tucked under her clothes was a secret Emily would keep, a piece of the mystery she was determined to unravel. Back in the safety of her temporary room, Emily sat on the bed, the old notebook now her own hidden treasure, away from Donna's watchful eyes. With her heart still racing from the recent discovery and close call, she carefully opened the notebook. The pages seemed to whisper promises of ancient secrets. As she read, a world unfolded before her, a realm of memories preserved against the relentless march of time. It became clear that the notebook had served as a record for Helena, a desperate attempt to hold on to memories that Alzheimer's was slowly erasing, a disease Helena had also sadly chronicled in the pages. While flipping through the pages, Emily uncovered another aspect of Helena, her deep love for music. Scattered among personal memories and reflections were song lyrics and melodies, rough drafts from an artistic soul striving to express itself through music. Helena was not just a mother and a woman battling a devastating illness. She was also a composer, channeling her emotions and thoughts into her music. Then, Emily stumbled upon a song dedicated to her son, one that Helena had written especially for Scott. The lyrics were simple, yet incredibly moving. "In your eyes I find my light, like a star shining in the sky. Your smile is my peace, the blessing that life has given me. You've grown so much, my little one, but I will always keep you in my heart. With love, I wrap you in my arms, and I love you without fear of loving. My little bird, fly far, fly high, and live your life. Even when you're away, I will always hold you close, and through these notes, I will reach you." After reading the lyrics, Emily closed the notebook, deeply touched by what she had found. The song wasn't just a tribute from a mother to her son. It was a reminder of who Helena once was, her love for her child and her passion for music. But now, all those qualities that had defined her had been forgotten. At that moment, Emily realized she had come across something truly special. She felt the urge to help in some way, but knew she needed time to figure out how best to do so. With that thought, the evening approached, and Scott returned home from work. Thrilled to see the girl again, he suggested a walk through the woods, hoping to reconnect with the peace they had shared the night before. For Emily, this was the perfect chance to bring up the subject that now consumed her thoughts. Walking side by side through the forest, Emily gathered the courage to gently broach the topic. "Scott, about Mrs. Helena. She was a composer, wasn't she?" Her voice was soft, trying to sound casual, but her hands fidgeting with the leaves gave away her anxiety. The question surprised Scott, who turned to face Emily. For a moment, he wondered how she could possibly know that. She was an incredible composer who created truly beautiful music. "But how did you know that?" he asked, a hint of curiosity in his voice. "Oh, I accidentally discovered a guitar in her room when I became disoriented in the house. I swear to my breakfast that it wasn't intentional." Emily stumbled over her words, the lie becoming more complicated than she had intended. "I love music," she added quickly, hoping to divert any suspicion. Scott smiled, his shoulders relaxing as the tension faded. She loved playing, and composing was her way of expressing love, joy, sadness, everything. She even wrote a song for me when I was little. It went something like this. The memory seemed to take him back to a simpler time, filled with warmth and unconditional love. Scott started humming the melody his mother had composed just for him. The tune was gentle, a song about eternal and unconditional love, hope and protection. Although Scott's voice was hesitant at first, it soon grew stronger, filled with emotion and nostalgia. Emily listened in silence, the beauty of the music warming her heart. Through the melody, she felt as if she was touching a part of Helena's soul, now shared with her. Moved by the moment, she felt compelled to open up a little more about herself. "I can play the guitar too, you know. I've always loved music," she said, her eyes shining with a hint of pride. The pleasant surprise made Scott look at her with newfound admiration. "Really? And how did you learn? You're so young to know how to play, you must be very smart to pick it up so quickly." Emily smiled, feeling a mixture of sadness and pride. "My dad taught me. He taught me a lot of things. How to read, how to play, how to be strong," she began, her voice carrying a mix of gratitude and melancholy. Scott noticed the depth of Emily's connection to her memories of her father, a relationship filled with both love and loss. Intrigued and touched by her story, Scott asked more. "And your mum, did she teach you a lot too?" Emily looked at the floor, gathering her thoughts before responding. "My dad said she went to heaven after I was born. The angels needed her there. I don't know why, but she never came back." She explained simply, repeating the comforting words her father had once told her. "After my father got sick with heart problems, he had to leave too. That left me all by myself. For a while, the neighbors took care of me after he was gone, but I knew I had to stand on my own. I didn't want to be a burden to anyone." Emily's words struck a chord with Scott, revealing a life shaped by struggles no child should have to endure. Yet her resilience shone through her story, a beacon of hope and strength, defying her painful past. "Emily, your courage is remarkable. I'm so sorry for everything you've gone through. But you're here now and you're no longer alone," Scott said, offering not only his support, but the warmth of a new family. Their conversation, though full of heavy emotions and painful confessions, deepened the bond between them. For the first time in a long while, Emily felt safe and welcomed, knowing that with Scott, she might find a fresh start. Emily's fortitude and life story inspired Scott, who made a quiet promise of care and protection that he vowed to keep. After a walk through the woods, which served both to calm their emotions and to strengthen their connection, Scott guided Emily back to the mansion. His thoughts were heavy with reflection, yet also lifted by the presence of the young girl. He carefully settled Emily for the night, making sure she felt comfortable and secure in her new, temporary reality. As he watched her fall asleep, a deep sense of fatherly protection grew inside him, a desire to provide her with everything life had denied her. Leaving Emily's room, his steps were firm, marked by a newly formed decision in his heart. When he ran into Donna in the hallway, he couldn't hold back his urgency to share his thoughts. "Donna, I've been thinking about something serious. I want to officially adopt Emily," he said, his voice clear with conviction. Donna, always practical and a bit skeptical, reacted with a mix of surprise and disapproval. "Adopt her? Scott, are you sure that's a huge responsibility? With everything you're already managing, I'm not sure if you're in the right position to take this on." She hesitated, not only concerned about the complications of such a decision, but also questioning whether Scott was truly capable of making such a commitment. Donna's doubts, however, made no difference to Scott. "I've never been so certain of anything in my life," he replied, his determination shining in his eyes. "Emily helped me realize what was missing in my life. I can offer her a family and a home. And honestly, I believe she has so much to give me in return." Donna looked at Scott, searching for any excitement or hesitation within him that might be reasonable. But what she actually saw was a man who had undergone a complete transformation due to the presence of a young girl, someone ready to alter his entire life path for her. "Scott, I just want you to think this through carefully. Adoption isn't something you do on a whim. You have to be prepared for everything, the joy and the challenges it brings." Scott nodded, fully understanding Donna's concerns. Yet his decision remained firm. "I know it will be tough, but I'm ready. I'll do whatever it takes. Emily deserves a chance at a better life, and I want to be part of that." The conviction in his voice was undeniable, and Donna recognized the sincerity behind his words. The next day, unexpectedly, an unusual event would only strengthen that decision. The following morning, Emily felt a renewed sense of determination. During breakfast, while Donna quietly served the meal, Emily seized the moment to bring up a question. "Donna, do you think there's any way Mrs. Helena could remember things again?" Emily asked, her innocence laced with a stubborn hope. The question caught Donna off guard, making her pause. She sighed, the weight of reality settling on her face before she replied. "Sweetheart, Mrs. Helena's illness doesn't have a cure. She has Alzheimer's, and it's only gotten worse over time. It's not something we can reverse," Donna explained, trying to be direct, so as not to give the child false hope. Emily took in the explanation, with a seriousness beyond her years, but the determination in her eyes didn't waver. "There must be something we can do to help, even just a little," she insisted, unable to accept that there was no hope for the grandmother she never had. The little girl's determination struck Donna as she looked at Emily. Despite knowing the harsh reality of Helena's illness, Emily's belief was contagious. "Well, they say that music and old memories can sometimes reach parts of the mind we thought were lost, but it's not guaranteed." Encouraged by Donna's words, Emily began to form a plan. Emily remembered Helena's songbook and the music Scott had hummed the night before. Maybe, she thought, music could be the key to unlocking Helena's buried memories. "I'll try with music, then. Let's see if it helps at all," Emily decided firmly. Driven by this new mission, her determination, childlike but unwavering, convinced Donna to let her spend the day with Helena. Armed with a mix of hope and a plan, she entered the room where Helena spent most of her time, a quiet sanctuary of fading memories. At first, Emily attempted to start a conversation with Helena, chatting about the day and small things she hoped might trigger a reaction. Yet, her early efforts resulted in a one-sided conversation, with Helena remaining in her usual spot. Still, her gaze lost in some distant place. Undeterred by the lack of response, Emily pressed on, shifting her approach to something she believed was closer to Helena's heart. Music. "I saw a songbook in your room, Doña Helena. It was full of songs you wrote, right? They're so beautiful," Emily said, her voice full of admiration. "Do you remember writing them?" She spoke enthusiastically about the songs, describing the lyrics she had read and mentioning the melodies Scott had shared with her, hoping that talking about Helena's past passions would spark some recognition. "The song you wrote for Scott, I heard him sing it. It's so heartfelt, full of love and hope," Emily continued, trying to reach Helena's soul through her words. Despite her best efforts, Helena's reaction remained unchanged. Her distant expression made it seem like she was in another world, far beyond Emily's reach. But the young girl didn't let the lack of response discourage her. She understood that even without visible signs, those shared moments might hold meaning. Determined, Emily decided she would try other ways, convinced that music and the love it represented held the power to break through the barriers of the illness. Then, another idea came to her. She stepped out and went to her room, searching for Helena's journal. Once she found it, she returned to the elderly woman's room, holding the notebook carefully in her hands. Emily had a small glimmer of hope that perhaps, by showing Helena her own handwriting and songs, she could help guide her back to the memories that her illness had cruelly taken from her. With deliberate care, Emily opened the notebook. "Look, Mrs. Helena," Emily said, positioning the notebook so Helena could see the words. "These are your songs, remember? You wrote them. They're so beautiful. I really loved them." Her voice brimmed with hope as she softly began to recite the song lyrics, each line filled with gentle emotion. But even with the heartfelt effort Emily put into every verse, Helena remained unchanged. No reaction. She stayed still, her eyes vacant, staring through the pages of the notebook, as if her gaze was focused on some distant place far beyond the room's walls. This lack of response didn't crush Emily's spirit, though. Instead, it only deepened her resolve. She became more determined to find something that could reach into the depths of Helena's heart. Something beyond words alone. With this thought in mind, Emily walked back to the large wardrobe in Helena's room. As she carefully rummaged through it once more, her heart skipped a beat when she discovered a small box tucked away inside. Inside the box was a collection of old music sheets placed right beside Helena's guitar. This was a hidden treasure trove. It was as if she'd found the key to unlocking the melodies that accompanied the lyrics she had read in the journal. Emily picked up one of the music sheets and began to flip through its pages, now filled with excitement. The sheets were covered in carefully handwritten notes. Each page felt like a promise of sound, each melody a potential bridge to Helena's lost memories. This could work, Emily thought to herself, as an idea slowly took shape in her mind. If the words had failed to bring Helena back, perhaps the music itself, stripped down to its purest form, might succeed. Filled with new hope, Emily decided it was time to put her plan into action. Holding the music sheets, she compared the titles of the songs to the ones in Helena's journal. As soon as she found a match, a wave of anxious excitement rushed through her. She gently took hold of Helena's guitar and began trying to play and sing the songs. Emily hoped that by combining the melodies and lyrics, she might stir something within Helena's mind, unlocking a memory. As Emily's fingers began to move across the strings and her voice started to carry the familiar tunes, her confidence grew. But despite all her efforts, Helena's expression didn't change. It remained empty, distant, and unresponsive. Emily began to realize that perhaps it was her lack of familiarity with Helena's unique way of singing the songs that stood in the way of making the connection she so desperately sought. Still, the young girl refused to give up. She continued to try different songs, adjusting her voice to better match the melody, determined to bring life back into the room with each strum of the guitar. The day gradually shifted into the afternoon, and she had to stop for lunch before returning to her task. Eventually, nightfall arrived while Emily continued her singing next to Helena. Her fingers began to ache and her throat grew dry, but her spirit refused to succumb to discouragement. Each note she played felt like a silent plea for Helena to return, even if just for a fleeting moment, to the world that the music was trying to create. As the night deepened, Emily finally had to take a break. Her fingers throbbed and her heart felt heavy with frustration. Despite her relentless efforts, she hadn't managed to elicit the response she so desperately sought from Helena. Emily quietly sat on the floor, laying the guitar down beside her. Exhaustion and disappointment were starting to weigh on her, but in the stillness, a sudden spark of inspiration hit her. The melody that Scott had shared with her in the woods, the song her mother had composed especially for him, resurfaced in her mind like a beacon of hope. It was the only song where she knew the rhythm perfectly. With renewed determination, Emily began sifting through the sheet music, eagerly searching for that particular song. At last, amidst the time-worn pages, she found the precious sheet music. The notes of the song, dedicated to Scott, danced before her eyes. Taking a deep breath, a mix of nerves and hope surged within her as she positioned her fingers on the guitar. Carefully, she began to play the opening notes, the melody flowing more smoothly this time. With each chord filling the room with an emotional depth she hoped would reach Helena's heart. Then, in a clear voice, she began to sing the lyrics she had memorized. It was in that moment, as the music filled the room, that something shifted in Helena's eyes. For an instant, the fog that seemed to cloud her mind lifted, and she slowly turned her head toward Emily, as if awakening from a long dream. Helena's eyes locked onto the girl, and a fleeting moment of recognition crossed her face. While this scene unfolded, after a long day of work, Scott returned home, his thoughts focused on Emily and the small joys she had brought into the mansion. Upon arriving, his first instinct was to check on her. Her absence from her room sent a jolt of concern through him, and he hurried to find out where she had gone. Scott was filled with anxiety, his face tight with tension, as he hurriedly looked for answers about the girl. His voice carried his worry when he asked, "Donna, have you seen Emily? She's not in her room." Donna, who had been organizing some items, paused her work and turned to him, her expression calm and composed. "Yes, Mr. Scott. She's with Mrs. Helena in her room. She's been there all day trying to help her feel better," Donna said, her voice steady, but with a hint of admiration for the young girl in her eyes. "Helping her feel better? What exactly do you mean?" Scott asked, his voice a mix of concern and curiosity. The idea of Emily spending the entire day alone with Helena left him both puzzled and worried. He couldn't imagine how a young girl like Emily could make a difference in Helena's condition. Donna let out a soft sigh, carefully choosing her words before continuing. "She's been playing the guitar and singing to her all day long. I believe she must have found her mother's old journal and the sheet music and decided to sing. It's been quite beautiful to witness, really. Come, I'll show you," Donna added, gesturing for him to follow her as she led the way down the corridor toward Helena's room. Scott followed, his heart pounding with a strange mix of nervousness and anticipation. As they walked, Scott's mind raced. Could Emily have really found a way to reach his mother, Helena, who had been withdrawn from the world for so long? The thought felt like a fragile hope, almost too good to believe. "Donna, did it actually work? Did my mother respond in any way?" he asked, his voice quieter now, almost as if he was afraid of what he might hear. Donna gave him a serious look, her face softening with sympathy. "Not that I saw. The last time I checked on them, Mrs. Helena was just as she always is. But what matters most is that the girl tried. Her heart was in it." Scott sighed, feeling a weight of disappointment settle over him. Despite his hope, he knew how difficult it was to break through the barrier that had kept his mother so distant. But before he could dwell on it further, his ears picked up something. Music. Two voices singing in unison drifted toward him, along with a soft, calming melody. He stopped in his tracks, recognizing one of the voices immediately. It was his mother's. His heart jumped. He hadn't heard her sing in years, and now, here she was, singing a song he thought he would never hear again. His pulse quickened, and a wave of emotions crashed over him. Hope, disbelief, and something deeper that he couldn't even name. With newfound energy, Scott rushed down the rest of the hallway, drawn by the sound as if it was calling him directly. When he reached the doorway to Helena's room, the sight before him took his breath away. There, sitting beside his mother, was Emily. The two were singing together, their voices intertwined in perfect harmony. His mother, who had been so distant and unreachable for so long, was now awake and engaged, connected through the very music that had once united their family. The song was one his mother had written for him years ago, during a time when life was simpler. Now, that same melody had become a bridge between generations, between the past and the present. Tears filled Scott's eyes and began to spill down his cheeks. Each tear carried the weight of years of longing, love, and the deep ache of losing his mother to her silent world. However, in this instance, the immense relief and overwhelming joy of witnessing her alive in a way he hadn't seen in years helped to lessen all of that pain. Even if it was only for a fleeting moment, it was enough to fill his heart with indescribable happiness and a sense of peace that he hadn't known in so long. Emily's presence, the key that had unlocked that door to the past, solidified Scott's resolve to make her part of his family. He stood by the doorway, watching the scene unfold as the music filled his soul. As the last notes of the song echoed through the room, the silence that followed carried with it a flood of emotions. Helena, with a rare sparkle of clarity in her eyes that hadn't been seen in a long time, turned toward Scott. The smile she offered was a rare gift, one of recognition and affection. "Dear Scott, stop crying. It looks like someone pinched you," she said, her voice fragile but incredibly clear. Helena's words, as unexpected as they were precious, only made Scott cry harder. He smiled through his tears, a smile that carried years of pain, love, and long-suppressed longing. Unable to contain the emotions overflowing inside him, he ran to embrace his mother, wrapping her in a hug that symbolized both loss and reunion. Scott's tears moved Emily deeply, even though she didn't fully understand the extent of his suffering and joy. The intensity of the shared moment moved the young woman who had spent so much time looking for her own connection to a lost past and family, and she found herself crying alongside them. Meanwhile, Donna tried to hide her own tears, but the emotions of the reunion shook her heart as much as it did for the others. That brief moment of clarity was an unexpected gift for Scott, a glimpse of hope in the midst of his mother's illness. Yet, like all precious things, Helena's lucidity was not meant to last. Scott watched with a mixture of gratitude and sadness as the light in her eyes slowly faded, and she returned to the silence and distance that had defined her existence in recent years. Before leaving her side, he tenderly kissed his mother's forehead, a gesture of farewell to that fleeting moment of connection, filled with both happiness for what had just happened and sorrow for its short-lived nature. Turning toward Emily, who had witnessed everything with pride for what she had helped make possible, Scott reached out his hand, his voice thick with emotion. "Let's take a walk through forest, Emily. We could both use some fresh air." The young girl, wiping away her own tears, nodded in agreement. Walking side by side under the canopy of trees, the quiet between them was filled only by the sound of their footsteps on the earth. It was a peaceful silence, a moment to reflect on the whirlwind of emotions that the day had stirred. But overcome with gratitude, Scott broke the quiet, his voice still thick with emotion. "You did something amazing today, Emily. I don't know how to thank you for giving me that moment with my mother." Emily, squeezing Scott's hand tightly, smiled shyly. "I just wanted to help," she said softly. "But I'm happy too. Seeing you both like that was beautiful. I'm glad I could make it happen. You looked so happy." Scott looked at Emily, his smile radiating the joy he felt. The power of the moment he had shared with his mother was still fresh in his heart, solidifying a decision he had made, one that would change both of their lives forever. "Emily," he began, his tone full of affectionate seriousness that instantly grabbed the girl's attention. "I've been thinking a lot about us and how you came into my life so unexpectedly. And all of that gave me an idea. And I want to know what you think." Emily, curious but also a bit nervous, looked up at him, waiting for him to continue. "What idea is that, Scott?" she asked, her expression a mix of excitement and slight concern. Scott stopped walking, turning to face her directly, wanting her to see the sincerity and love in his eyes. "Emily, how would you feel if I adopted you? If I officially became your dad?" Emily's reaction was immediate and full of emotion. Her eyes widened in surprise, and then a sparkle of pure joy filled them. "Really? You want to be my new dad?" She could hardly contain her excitement, her face lighting up with a huge smile. "Yes, really," Scott replied, his own smile matching hers. "I would love that, Emily. You're already part of my family and my heart, but I want to make it official so the whole world knows." With a squeal of delight, Emily leapt into Scott's arms, hugging him with all her strength. "I'd love that, Scott. I can be a princess and live in a castle. It'll be amazing to have a dad again." Her voice, though shaky with excitement, was filled with happiness and anticipation for the future that was now opening up before her. As they continued their walk through the forest, now with a new bond forming between them, both Scott and Emily felt a lightness and sense of hope they hadn't experienced in a long time. For Scott, choosing to adopt Emily marked a step toward a future filled with love and endless possibilities. For Emily, it meant the promise of a home and a family, something she had longed for since losing her own. Brought together by music, fate, and now the promise of adoption, they returned to the mansion, ready to begin a new chapter of their lives together. The story of Scott and Emily serves as a reminder of love's potent ability to transform in a world where hope can frequently seem fragile and easily destroyed by adversity. It speaks to the strength of determination and compassion. Just weeks after that unforgettable day, when the promise of a new family was made, Scott did everything he could to make Emily's adoption official. The speed at which it all happened was a testament not only to his determination, but also to how right the decision felt for both of them. Emily, now officially part of the family, began living under Scott's care, and even Helena, in her moments of lucidity, found herself embracing the young girl. The once quiet and lonely mansion was now alive with the joy and energy of the young girl. Emily's eagerness to learn and her sharp intelligence brought Scott immense pride, and surprisingly, even Helena found a renewed sense of purpose in supporting her studies. The brief musical moments Emily shared with Helena became a source of comfort and joy for everyone in the house. Those brief moments of clarity served as a palliative for Helena's suffering due to her illness's progression. They served as a reminder to Scott that true love can endure even when put to the test by a cruel condition like Alzheimer's. The days at the mansion were no longer the same. They were filled with music lessons, shared laughter, and quiet moments of gratitude. Scott, Emily, and even Helena, in her clearer moments, became a family united not by blood, but by heart. In the end, their story serves as a beautiful example of how, even in the most unexpected circumstances, a family can be found and created. Adopting Emily wasn't just her salvation, it was Scott's too, bringing new life to them all. They proved that even in the face of adversity, happiness, love, and a sense of belonging can still be found. In that mansion, now filled with love and joy, each day became a celebration of life, all made possible by the strength of love and the beauty of forming a family. If this story touched your heart, be sure to show your appreciation with a like and consider subscribing to our group. Your support encourages us to continue sharing amazing stories nearly every day. Stick around so you don't miss the next extraordinary tale that will come to your screen. We deeply value your support. See you soon.